Hey, good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome into the Rocky Top Rewind. I am Eric Kane alongside Brett Hubbs. Appreciate you guys for being here. We'll be with you live on the Volquest YouTube channel until 9 o'clock Eastern Time, looking back at Tennessee's mammoth win over UConn on the homecoming slate, 59-3. Looking ahead to Tennessee and Missouri. Of course, we have those kickoff times now. Both of those games for Missouri and Georgia going to be 3:30 on CBS. And looking ahead to Tennessee basketball, we'll have Grant Ramey on at 8:30. Austin Price will join us at 8:45. We will take your questions throughout the hour, so go ahead and send those in there. And a big thank you to Spivey King and Spivey LLP for making this coverage possible each and every Sunday night. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That's TN Trial Lawyers. You can get a free consultation today at 423-245-4185. You can visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Brent Hubbs, Tennessee takes care of business 59-3, got in, handled business, got out, let some youth play, and look good doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you were looking for. I mean, Josh Heupel had a really good, perfect day on Saturday, and Josh Dobbs had a perfect day on Sunday. So a pretty good day for the Joshes with Tennessee Titans. Hats off to Josh Dobbs. It's pretty amazing what he did today. I know that's not what we're talking about on this show, but just a shout out to Dobbs because it's pretty remarkable to arrive in Minneapolis and do what he did today to the Falcons on basically no notice, if you will. As for Tennessee, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you'd hope to have happen, right? We talked about it going into the game. You know, maturity was going to be, one of the things you were looking for. Would this team be mature enough to handle themselves in a game like this? As you're in November, could you have the focus that you have? Everybody's talking about Missouri and Georgia. You've just come off 3 pretty physical games with A&M, Alabama, and Kentucky. Could you be focused? And they were. They got out of the gates fast. They ended it early. No offensive player played more than 40 snaps in a football game. I mean, there are starters who played more than 40 snaps in the orange and white game. So for that to happen in November is a great thing for the offense, great thing for the defense. They got a bunch of young guys, some work. Yes, I would have liked to have seen Nico for another series, as we talked about on the post-game podcast, but I don't think it's the end of the world either way. The point being, ain't anybody hurt. They won the game comfortably. On to the next one.
Yeah, we'll keep discussing this game, Tennessee 59-3 win over UConn. What stood out to us, some of those youthful players as the hour goes on. But John wants to know, he says, hey, Nico is all the talk, but who else in the young group stood out to you? I got a couple of guys that stood out to me, Brent, and tell me what you think. Thought Ricky Gibson, he was flagged once for defensive hold or defensive pass interference, but I thought he tackled really well in the open space. A lot of good things I like from Ricky Gibson. Thought Cam Seldon ran the football well, ran the football hard in the second half. And then a second-year player, a sophomore, I thought Jordan Thomas flashed a lot. And we talked about it in the post-game mini-pod. He rotated in there with the starting safety, some of the starters at cornerback, early in the first half. And he's a guy Tennessee wants to play next year. He's a guy that needs to come along. And I thought he made some nice tackles, specifically on third downs there at points in time. So I go Jordan Thomas and Ricky Gibson, 2 defensive backs that the younger crowd that stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Jordan Thomas one's interesting because he was the first one in, which makes me wonder just how banged up was Tamarion McDonald. Did they just feel like they needed to get him off the field earlier than normal? That was a little surprising given all the talk from Willie Martinez when we talked to him in the media about T-Mac getting everybody lined up and how important he was to them back there. I thought Jordan Thomas responded really well. He played through a couple of wide receiver screens really well. He was athletic. He was fast. He didn't look lost or out of place. So I was really impressed with what I saw in him. I thought he would be good on rewatch. He was, to me, good on rewatch. I'll tell you another guy who stood out who's not a young guy. I thought Elijah Simmons looked athletic, fresh and athletic, really showed up against a very average UConn offensive line, but lateral quickness for a guy his size, really like him. And then, Ricky Gibson, I think, is a guy who's been coming. The one that stood out to me that had a couple of wow plays is Ethan Davis. Every time I see Ethan Davis play in that stadium in 11-on-11 setting, it seems like he makes plays. Orange and white game, scrimmage, if you get to see a little bit of it. This game yesterday, 2 catches for 33 yards. You can tell he's still got plenty to learn in the blocking side of things, but man, I think he's got a chance to be a really good player for Tennessee at the tight end position. He needs help next year. That's why the portal is going to be important. but he's going to be a part of what they do on offense at the tight end spot next year with a good offseason if he can stay healthy. Because I was a big fan of what I saw out of Ethan Davis. I thought he looked really quick.
Yeah, I thought he did too. It was the first play of the second series with Nico. He was in there and 14-yard strike at the sticks. Thought he looked really good. You got two seniors that play in front of him. One's via the transfer portal, but they brought him in for a reason. That's McCallum Castles and, of course, Jacob Warren. And you need two tight ends to play in the system. But both those guys are leaving. So, Z Bales 23 says, do you think Ethan Davis and Jordan Matthews can contribute next season? Ready or not, Ethan Davis is going to play. If he's healthy, he is going to play. And I think he's going to be really good in this offense. And, of course, as you mentioned, the transfer portal will be Tennessee's friend in that regard. Jordan Matthews is another guy that, it's Ricky Gibson that kind of gets the talk in the defensive backfield. But Tennessee would like Jordan Matthews to continue to come along. I think he'll need a big offseason. But one of those prize gets in the class last year that they really like and they would love to see contribute next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think his adjustment to the college game has been, from just an intensity standpoint, I think has been a bit steep. He did not play yesterday. It looks like they're trying to redshirt him. I think he's already played in 2 games, so I don't know that they wanted to put him out there and mop up duty just in case they have another injury. You don't want him to have played 3 games and you have an injury and you've got to play him. Remember what happened in the bowl game 2 years ago? They didn't have any corners, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want a guy who has played 4 games going into the bowl game and all of a sudden you got to have somebody, or you got to have somebody in the Vanderbilt game because you've had a rash of injuries and you're trying to redshirt him. So I think that's probably why you didn't see Jordan Matthews yesterday. But I don't think anybody's down on Jordan Matthews. Ricky Gibson's just been ahead of him. I think the adjustment for Ricky has been a little easier. I don't know if that's level of competition in high school or what's been the cause of that, but Ricky Gibson's a guy who's played some all year long. I think right now it's hard to look at him and not say he's one of your top 4 corners if they're going to continue to rotate those two. It feels like he's playing a little better than Brandon Turnage is and Warren Burrell right now. I would like to see him in that rotation moving forward. I just like how fast he played yesterday. His reaction time to me seemed to be really good yesterday. So I would like to see a little more Ricky Gibson. We'll see if they on the road in the SEC, if there's the confidence to play him there. But he played some at Kentucky before he got banged up. I would like to see him get a few more rotations at corner.
Yeah, and he played some at Florida as well. If we remember, that's the game that did Nico Slaughter. That was the first one where he missed because of his foot injury. So they were down a corner. Got him in there a little bit. I don't know if he knew exactly what was going on. Thought he flashed at times, but as you mentioned, played against Kentucky a little bit, got banged up. So I think the willingness to at least put him in there for stretches on the road is there. His tournament bracket here says, hey, what's the confidence in putting him in there against Missouri? They're going to need some guys because Brady Cook is a good quarterback. They got some receivers that can go and get it. Tennessee's secondary will need to play a lot of guys. I think Ricky Gibson, should be one of those guys in that rotation next week.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised that Slaughter played as much as he did. I thought that was a guy that you could take the week and let the foot heal even a little bit more, because clearly it was bothering him some at Kentucky. I didn't think he played nearly as fast. And you're going to go play on a different surface in Missouri. I don't know if that affects the foot more. I'm a little surprised they played him. He didn't play a ton, but I'm a little surprised that they didn't pull the John Campbell for him and go, hey, you're good. We'll roll with some of these other corners because we're not too worried about what Connecticut's going to do throwing the football against us. But, they decided to play him a few snaps, and it looks like he got through it okay. But I was a little surprised they played him.
James says, hey, it looks like the light has come on for Joe Milton. He's looked really good the last 3 games. Is he ready to win a crucial road game? Yeah, of course, you needed to win against Kentucky. You did. That was on the road. I know what he's saying, though. I mean, this is a huge game on the road. 2 teams that are, having some pretty good seasons. Of course, it leads into the Georgia game. Joe Milton, since that Alabama game, really has played some good football since the second half of Texas A&M, has really ran the football well. He's been accurate. He's hitting throws now, and I know it was UConn. But that throw to Squirrel, I'm not sure, he hits that over the middle. That was the second read as well. I'm not sure he hits that throw back in week 2 or week 3. Might be a little inaccurate. He's efficient. He's been accurate with the football, and Tennessee needs him to play well. But he is playing his best football, and he'll have to against Missouri.
Yeah, I think he's got a better feel for this offense. And I think the other thing, too, is this receiving core is playing a lot better. That they seem to be in more in sync with Joe, and they seem to have put in some extra work and got a better rhythm about themselves. And I think you're right. I don't think he makes that throw to Squirrel White, not in stride at full speed the way he did. He might have made it, but it would have been for a 15-yard gain instead of a 60-yard touchdown or whatever it ended up being, because he gave Squirrel a chance to do something with the ball after he caught it. Too many times early in the year, guys were having to reach and climb the ladder and slide down and catch stuff. He's throwing the ball much more accurately. I think his footwork has been more consistent the last 3 weeks. It'll have to be that way, Saturday afternoon against Missouri. But yeah, I mean, I think Joe's playing his best football right now. So you should go into Missouri with confidence in where this offense is.
We'll get one more question, then we'll take a 60-second breather. We'll come back and get plenty more of your questions. Again, we're on the air until 9 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have Grant Ramey on at 8:30, Austin Price at about 8:40. John wants to know, or John, a statement here. Thought Addison Nichols played pretty well at left guard. He came in, he was in that group with Nico's first series when it was kind of a mixture. It was a blend of starters, some key backups, and he's one of those guys we talked about, Brent, that the staff needs to get a look at. Needs to play him these next couple of games. I thought it was a perfect situation, and he was on that touchdown scoring drive where I think it went 8 yards or whatever and ended in a 19-yard touchdown pass, Nico to McCowan Castles.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was fine. I mean, I don't have enough knowledge to know what all his assignments were. That's the hardest position for me to figure out if they did well. If a guy pulls Eric and gets a pancake or squares a guy up and creates a crease, I can look at that and go, man, that's a really good offensive line play. But I don't know about some of the other stuff. I thought he was playing fast. It did not look like he was playing with much hesitancy. He didn't have a penalty. He didn't look confused on anything. I think Addison Nichols has practiced better the last couple of weeks. I think he feels more confident that he's felt in a while in this offense and is starting to maybe put some things together. So we'll see. I don't think they're ready to rotate him in on any kind of regular basis with this offensive front. But I do think it was encouraging, that he got the snaps. They put him in there it wasn't just in the wholesale change, which I think was smart. And hopefully we'll get to see him some more, down the closing stretch of the season, because I think he's an important piece for Tennessee next year, because we just don't know how many of these O-line guys are coming back. Somebody asked this on the board this morning, and I think LWS had a spreadsheet with a better answer than I could think of off the top of my head. But, I mean, you're talking about changing the way your football team looks. I mean, the decision that these COVID guys are going to make, no offense to Jacob Warren and Ollie Lane, who decided to use theirs this year. Tennessee's reaping the benefits of that. But, man, there is some names on that list that could potentially come back next year that could certainly change what this football team looks like, particularly in the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So, man, the next 8 weeks, 9 weeks, guys making that decision are really going to be interesting, because it's going to change the outlook of this football team in 2024, I think, pretty significantly moving forward.
22 snaps yesterday for Addison Nichols, according to Pro Football Focus.
And what did starters play? 38? So I think Cooper played 38.
Cooper played 38, yeah.
So Cooper and Spraggins played 38. I think Crawford probably played 38 snaps. That 22 is a good number. I mean, that's a good. Mm-hmm. They got him in early, got Addison Nichols in early, and got some really good stuff on tape for Addison to look at where he can improve, and for them to make a really good evaluation on Addison Nichols. I think that's a wise decision to get him in as early as they did.
Sidebar real quick. We talked about the tight end last week. It was Jacob Warren at Kentucky that played about 20 more snaps than McCowan Castles, and they've been splitting it about 50-50 all year long until last week. This week, Jacob Warren, a lot of rest. According to Pro Football Focus, Jacob Warren only 9 snaps in this game, and McCowan Castles had 29. And, of course, you had Ethan Davis and some other guys. We'll continue to answer your questions right here on the Rocky Top Rewind. Do want to give a big shout-out to our friends Spivey King and Spivey LLP. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That's at TN Trial Lawyers. They specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injuries. Some examples of that: DUI, homicide, assaults, personal injuries, car wrecks, accidents, and injuries. Over 80 years of combined experience, Spivey King and Spivey LLP. They provide representation throughout the state and federal courts of Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience. This practice has been in place for 43 years with this partnership with Matthew A. Spivey, J. Matt King, and Rich A. Spivey since 2012. They also have partners who are energized for today's legal demands. Practicing primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, of Hawkins County, Washington counties, and surrounding counties. Whether you're injured in a car accident, need a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey King and Spivey LLP is here to help you. 423-245-4185 for a free consultation. Again, that's 423-245-4185, or you can always visit them online at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Spivey King and Spivey LLP, proud sponsors of the Rocky Top Rewind. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. I'm Eric Kane. That guy is Brent Hubbs. We're answering your questions, talking about Tennessee and UConn, 59-3 until 9 o'clock Eastern time when we take a break here until next week. Let's go back to some of your questions. We were talking about it here in just a moment ago. Wes wants to know about Cooper Mays. He's one of those guys that has an option to come back. Will he go to the NFL draft? Will he move on? Will he be back here at Tennessee? Obviously, if Cooper Mays comes back, that would be just a huge win in so many ways, more than one. I mean, you look at how this team and this offense played without him earlier this year, and this offense is certainly hitting its stride right now with its center.
Yeah, no doubt, and he's got a great understanding. I think he's been a huge part of Joe continuing to grow and improve. They've obviously pushed tempo the last 2 weeks, which I think has paid dividends for him. So yeah, I mean, I is there a chance he comes back? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance. What does he look like from a draft standpoint with the NFL? Is he tired of being in college? Did missing those first few games of the year kind of change his outlook? Like, hey, I didn't get a full season. I'm not really ready for this to be over yet. That this offensive line can look very different, not just with Cooper Mays, but with a lot of those guys and the opportunity to come back. What kind of NIL factors are out there for them? That lots of things for those guys to consider. So if you'd asked me this question in July or August, I would have said absolutely no way. Even in early September, I didn't think there was any way. Is there a possibility that he could come back? I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know that he's leaning that way at this point. There's some guys with some interesting decisions and spots that they're in who are very experienced football players. Cooper being one of them. What does Keenan Peely want to do at 26 years of age? Does he want to keep trying to play football? Is he ready to be done? He's married. What is his wife? Where they want to go in the next stage of their life? NFL wise, he doesn't have much on tape. He wanted to come to the SEC to show what he could do. He got 1 quarter basically to do that. Could he win an appeal to get back? All those things I think are decisions that he's looking at while he continues to rehab. I don't know how close he realistically is to being back. He's not going to play this week against Missouri. And then Brew McCoy's in a similar boat. So some unusual circumstances for those guys that may help dictate some decisions for them that could be good for Tennessee. Maybe it doesn't work out for Tennessee. But, boy, the landscape of this team could change a lot with a few of those decisions in your favor.
I was going to say, I mean, you hate it for those guys who got injured. Brew McCoy, Keenan Peely, you hate that so much. You hate Cooper. It took him 5-6 games to get going. But you can either go one of two ways here. All those guys, the Brew McCoys, the Keenan Peelys, the Cooper Mays, the Spraggins, the Gerald Mincy's, the Ollie Lane's out of eligibility. But then you go to defense, the Bryson Easons, the Amari Thomas, the Omar Norman Lotz. I mean, again, the only one on the defensive line that we feel pretty confident in saying right now that he's not going to be back is probably Tyler Barron. So all those guys won't leave. All those guys won't come back. But right. How many choose to come back and choose to leave? I mean, it can really Because, I mean, you got a question here from Z Bells. Based on what you've seen right now, is this team capable of playing at a championship level in 2024? We just have no way of knowing right now because we've seen a total of 31 snaps from Nico this season. We don't know about all those guys. Your tight ends, you're losing your top two contributors. We just don't know a lot right now, and a lot of that has to do, again, on the decisions that some of those guys will be making.
Well, you're talking about an offensive line that has 4 guys with a decision that could potentially come back, right? I guess J.J. Crawford can't come back and Ollie Lane can't come back. Those are the 2, right?
Yes.
Everybody else can come back. I mean, Gerald Mincey. So 4 of your starters can come back for another year if they choose to do so. We'll see. I mean, I get, Taylor, what you're saying. Got to pay some guys from the offensive line so come back. I mean, I think that's something you certainly have to look at, right? I mean, where are those guys at? Where do they think they are? What would it take? All those things are going to factor in. So it's going to be really fascinating. We talk about it all the time, Eric. Roster management. People get tired of that phrase, but roster management dictates so much of what this team is going to look like here over the next, 8 weeks or so. It's going to be really fascinating to see. That's the recruiting story of this team. Look, I know they're trying to close out with a few guys, and Austin can talk more about that in the last segment. But the real recruiting win and loss for this team is going to be, what do they do with the COVID guys? How many do they want to come back? How many do come back? That's going to be the story of this team for 24.
Lewis says, will the Vols go after more than one wide receiver and tight end in the portal / JUCO? Brent, I think if you can find 2 tight ends with multiple years, you take them both if they fit. I mean, you got to get one no matter what. I think you get 2 if you can. Wide receivers, maybe. I mean, you're thin at the position, so you'd always like to get another one, okay? But I think a lot of it depends on, of course, Keaton's gone. Squirrel will be back. Presuming Webb and Nimrod will be back. At this point in time, Thornton's going to be back. You got Nathan Leacock. You need to get another one. Of course, you're going to be welcoming in a couple as well. I say at least 1 wide receiver, and if you can get 2 tight ends, you take 2. Easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting here going, hey, you get 1 receiver and 1 tight end, or you can have 2 tight ends, I'm taking 2 tight ends. And I'll put some bank in Mike Matthews playing outside for me while he learns the inside slot position, right? I think there's a chance for some contribution there more than there is for a freshman tight end to come in and compete. And I'm not knocking Jonathan Eccles. I'm not knocking if they were able to pull a Max LeBlanc. That's just such a hard position for a freshman to come in and play physically. So if you could go with 2 tight ends, I would take 2 tight ends for sure. I would consider 1 tight end with multiple years and 1 tight end with only 1 year if I had to. Because, look, knock on wood, they're at the finish line here, but I mean, they're a sprained ankle away from Ethan Davis being on the game and being in the game in critical situations, because they have lived with 2 tight ends right now. Now, they've rotated those guys. They haven't played a lot of 2 tight end sets, but man, you can't ask one of those guys to play every play at tight end if somebody gets banged up. So, they've been fortunate to get through that. They've really been fortunate the last couple of years to get through the tight end position injury-free, with a couple of guys who have spent a career battling injuries, in Jacob Warren and Princeton Fan a year ago.
I was going to say, I mean, you were in this same situation last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know the years kind of mixed together. Miles Campbell was on the team last year, left in the transfer portal this offseason, right?
Nah, he was already gone.
So who was the third-string tight end last year? I'm trying to remember. You were in the same situation.
Charlie Browder, I guess, would have been.
Okay.
They just didn't have to go there because they stayed healthy. And I guess Browder would probably go ahead of Ethan Davis right now, but it's a different position if you've got Charlie Browder on the field, because he's more of just a straight inline tight end and not a guy who's going to flex out and do some different things. So I don't know. I mean, to me, depending on what this offensive line looks like coming back, you got to go transfer portal offensive line. But tight end may be the most important guy, the place where you have to get one, because there's no option for any of those guys to come back. Now, if you don't get any of those offensive linemen to come back, then that changes how important the transfer portal is for the offensive line. But we know how important it is for the tight end position.
Sam says, Kane, we lost to Samford today. Is this team going to make Hoover? I know he's being sarcastic. I'm getting more and more notes. Obviously, I was not in Nashville today. I will be at Smoky Stadium on Thursday for Game 1 of the Fall World Series. Cannon Peebles had a really strong start to the day, had a 3-run single, I believe, had a 2-run home run, drove in about 4 or 5 runs. I'll continue to get some more notes on that. But as we know, these exhibitions, they're throwing a different pitcher every single inning. It's truly just practice is what it is. Also, and I know Sam knows that, but also Sam says, you guys ready for beautiful Columbia this week? I asked Hubs earlier in the week because I forgot if that is an open-air press box. At the top it is, but he'll be bundled up and ready to go. I do think it is a win for not only myself and Austin Price, but a win for everybody. It's a 3:30 kickoff, 2:30 local time. It's not going to be a night game, and I think that'll help Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you, Sam Pittman, for getting it done in Gainesville, Florida, because if Florida wins that one, I think that ends up being Florida LSU on CBS. But because both those teams lost, I think that opened the door for them to take Missouri and Tennessee. And look, the weather doesn't look bad on Saturday right now in the afternoon. I think it's going to be in the mid-50s. I think Tennessee plays better in the day than they do at night, unless it's night at home, because they're a morning practice team. I think that's in their routine. So I think it's good. And I don't, Missouri's those people are nice people, but that's not like going into the swamp from a loudness standpoint. Even though they've got a good team this year, I don't think that will just be out of control, loud or anything like that. But I think everybody at Tennessee is happy with the fact that it's a 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern start.
Sam goes on to ask how Tennessee is going to defend Luther Burden. Man, he was, former one of the top players in the country a couple of cycles ago, former 5-star, stayed home to go to Missouri. Paying dividends for him now. Dominic Lovett transfers out. He is a big attention getter for a quarterback that can sling it. He's going to create some problems for Tennessee's secondary. I mean, there's a couple other guys as well watching that Georgia-Missouri game yesterday, but Tennessee will have to account for Luther Burden each and every snap.
Yeah, well, first of all, he goes on to say if they commit pass interference, they can't call it every play, right? I mean, I don't know what pass interference is anymore, so I can't answer that part.
What's targeting?
I don't know what either one of those penalties are anymore in college football. I'm not sure anybody does. Look, I mean, I think you got to roll safety help over the top. You're going to have to be good against the run without a bunch of help in the box, because you're going to have some help on those receivers. The challenge that you have is you got a spy Cook, because he can run and can use his wheels. The little running back, for Sanker or whatever his name is for Missouri, is a really, really solid player, really good player. They've got a lot of balance. I mean, I like their balance a lot in watching them play a couple times this year. So Tennessee's got their work cut out for them, and I think you got to give some corner help or some safety help with the corners, because this is where you miss Kamal Hadden in some of these matchups here, I think. And so you got to get to Cook. I think the one thing in watching Tennessee the last 10 quarters, going back to the second half against Alabama, is their inside pressure is kind of went away, Eric. The push from Omari Thomas and Omar Norman Lott and those guys in the interior. I know Omar Norman Lott had a sack at Kentucky, but really Tyler Barron created that one. Tennessee has got to get in the face of Cook, and they've got to not give him that bubble he can step up into. When they got into Joyner yesterday to start the second half, he threw it to him twice. And they got there because they were in his face with pressure. That edge stuff is great. You can come off the edge hard, but they can also push you out of the play. You got to get that inside push. And I think Tennessee's inside push hasn't been as good the last couple of games as it was early in the year. They've got to get that back this week against Missouri.
They do. And when you go that Rabbits package, you shift Tyler Barron inside. Earlier in the year, James Pearson company flying upfield, and he was just sitting there ready to clean up. And you're going to need some of that next week against Brady Cook. We'll get thoughts from Grant Ramey on Tennessee's win over UConn. Tennessee, Missouri coming up next week. Tennessee basketball starting the season. That is tomorrow. But first, get a quick shout out to our proud sponsors. That is Game Time for making the Rocky Top Rewind happen. Game Time. You should never have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event, whether it's a sporting event, whether you're going to Thompson Bowling Arena, the Food City Center, but also they have theater. They've got concerts there all the time. They got monster truck rallies, or wherever, the Tennessee Theater around town, or wherever you're from. sporting events, concerts, all that type of stuff. You can buy tickets, last-minute deals, and more by downloading the Game Time app. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, also job loss protection, so they always have your back. They got tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after the event starts. It's the place for last-minute seats. So I encourage you to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code VOLS, VOLS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code VOLS, VOLS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. More of the Rocky Top Rewind, that's coming up next. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. I'm Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, and now we welcome on Grant Ramey, Volquest.com. Grant, Tennessee did what it was supposed to do, winning in impressive fashion, setting some records defensively, 59-3 win over UConn yesterday.
Just what we predicted, right? A couple pick sixes, scoop and score, a couple 83-yard touchdowns, 35-3 to start first half, and then 59 on the board. I think it's just what we had been waiting for a long time with this team. I thought it's what people expected against Austin Peay. Hadn't seen it in a while. Hadn't seen it all season really in terms of that level of explosiveness, taking care of business against a inferior opponent the way they should, and basically emptying the bench the entire second half. So I think it went to plan just about as much as it could have gone to plan.
We've been talking about some younger players and everything. A player that we really haven't spoke on, at least his performance, is Nico. He got 2 series, got about 20-ish plays or whatever. What would you think about Nico in the first time we've seen him play since September?
I would have loved to see more of him, but I also kind of understand that if you're not going to play first, second teamers around him, don't throw him out there with your third stringers and guys you don't really know about or know what's going to happen to. But I thought when he was on the field, the 2 drives he got, he took care of the football. He ran when he needed to run. That was a really good play on the McAllen Castle's touchdown. He just looked like a guy that belonged out there, a guy that's made the progress that the coaches have talked about when we've asked them. What was impressive to me, I thought, was he threw his first touchdown pass. It felt like everybody on the field came out and celebrated with him. That was fun to watch him get that moment in that kind of game. Finally, after people have been waiting and looking for it for a long time. And it was also cool to see Tennessee fans get to give him a round of applause when he got in the game and to watch him have that kind of moment in the sun.
Great. You look at Tennessee basketball, it starts the season tomorrow. You've got Tennessee Tech coming up. Tennessee Tech kind of puts the fear in Tennessee baseball, but it shouldn't in Tennessee basketball. What are you expecting from the season lid lifter tomorrow, and step number 1 on what should hopefully be a long and deep run into the postseason?
Apparently, we're expecting Zakai Ziegler to play. Rick Barnes apparently said it on The Nation tonight that Zakai will play tomorrow night against Tennessee Tech in the season opener, and Zakai tweeted a bunch of smiley faces not long after that, which is usually your clue that and Tennessee basketball retweeted it, which is the official confirmation, I guess, that Zakai's going to play tomorrow. And I mean, it's an inferior opponent. They should take care of business like they did against Lenore Ryan. What we've seen from this team, they're pretty explosive offensively. They're going to do their usual thing on the defensive end. Get Zakai out there, get him for a few minutes, see what he looks like, and try to more so kind of shift your focus towards Wisconsin and how many minutes he can give you there in a big road game, a big Big Ten environment. Once again, it's like we were there a couple weeks ago, but now we're back on the Big Ten tour for basketball. So they'll go to Wisconsin Friday night. Looking forward to that one. Be a huge one.
Grant, how much of this for Zakai is just get your feet wet? This is a good game to get your feet wet. You'll get the ovation everybody's looking for at home. You get, you get a shift, if you will, to borrow a hockey term. Probably not going to play a ton, but just to kind of get lathered up before you get into some intensity stuff and they ease you back in. And how much of this is Zakai just finally wore everybody down to the point where they're like, okay, listen, we've held him off as long as we can hold him off. He's got to play a little bit here so we can continue his progress and continue to build him up for what we want him to be later in December and into January.
The kind of weird thing is it feels like to us that have watched them practice for a little bit now for the month of October. We saw him some in July too. It feels like he's been back the entire month of October. It feels like he's been his normal self. It feels like, I don't know if he's been full go in practice, but it looks like he's been full go based on what we've seen. I mean, we were there in July and he was running stadium steps at Thompson Bowling Arena while the team was practicing. That's how healthy he looked back in the summer. So I think tomorrow night, I think it's more about just getting him out there, knocking the rust off, kind of getting the welcome back Zakai Ziegler stuff out of the way and play him however long you feel like playing him. I doubt they'll go full workload that you might see Friday night at Wisconsin with Zakai because it is Tennessee Tech, but just get him out there, let him kind of get back that feeling on the floor, game night, that kind of thing. But it feels like to us that have watched him that he's just been back and he's been his normal self basically the entire preseason. I'm surprised they didn't kind of get that stuff out of the way against Lenore Ryan. And there was some talk that maybe he would try at Michigan State last Sunday, but they've waited till now. And I guess the time is now to kind of get that out of the way.
Grant, how much is this for the next week, even though Wisconsin, a Big Ten environment and a quality opponent, how much is right now for the next, and how many more weeks is this experimentation for Rick Barnes of just who plays well together? What are we doing? I want to see what this combination looks like versus what that combination looks like. Do these two guys play well together? Can we go big? Can we go small here? How much of this for the next month is just kind of mad scientists, if you will, playing with a really deep roster?
I think, funnily enough, this was supposed to be kind of something that happened at Michigan State where they're going to play a ton of kids and empty the benches on both sides. And I think the competitive juices got going in that one a little bit, and both guys wanted to win, and they started throwing their guys out there, their top end guys, top of the rotation guys, and tried to win that basketball game. I think it'll be, it's Tennessee Tech. It's, you can't really do that as much at Wisconsin. You're going there to try to win a basketball game, win a big road game. I think you need to start knowing kind of what your rotation is by the time you get to Maui because it's loaded and it's 3 games in 3 days, and it's going to be really good competition. Starting with Syracuse, not the best team in the field, obviously, but it's still Syracuse, and you're going there to win basketball games against a really, really good field there. And then you go to North Carolina as soon as you get back. I mean, you got Illinois coming to Thompson Bowling Arena the second week of December 9th, I think. So this entire non-conference, it feels like, is pretty loaded. And the point of it is to pick up some big wins and get yourself battle tested for conference play. It's also to figure out kind of yourself and your rotation and the guys that play well together and all that stuff. So it's going to be, I think by the time you go to Maui, by the time it kind of business picks up a little bit, you need to start knowing who you are around that time, I think.
I know it was just 2 exhibitions and one was against Lenore Ryan. So again, you can't just read into everything, but I mean, that exhibition on the road to Michigan State, I mean, that's just something, again, we talked about it. You just don't get that a lot, before the season starts. Right. That being said, I mean, Dalton Connect and Jordan Gainey, I mean, are they legit going to be dudes? I mean, are they going to be, up there, fighting with Santi and Zakai and everybody, and Josiah sometimes for leading scorer every single game? I mean, offensive weapons, are they going to be the real deal for Tennessee?
Eric Kane, you've worked with me for a year now, so you should know how big of a cynic I am, and I need to see it to believe it. I need to see it consistently. I need to see it for long.
Hubs is rubbing off on you now. Come on.
I know. No, I mean it's 9 years of covering Tennessee basketball. Basketball is such a long season, and you take so many different shapes and forms throughout the season. Dalton Connect looks legit, and what he's looked like in these 2 exhibitions is what we've heard all summer about it. And I didn't really buy into what we heard all summer because I needed to see it with my eyes. I saw it at Michigan State, saw it with Lenore Ryan. Now I just need to see it pretty consistently. He looks like a legit scorer. He's got the size, he's got the skill. I think he's an NBA player down the line. He's got to be that guy that makes a difference for them. And Jordan Gainey too. They brought him in to be a shooter. He's one of the best shooters in the country a couple of years ago. Now he's at higher level, but he's got better talent around him. That should open the floor up for him a little bit. But Rick has to hit on guys in the portal because that's what college basketball is now. You can't strike out there. You can be a great recruiter, prep prospects, that's awesome, but you need to be able to fill in gaps, fill in needs in the portal, and you can't strike out there. And too often they've struck out there. And we saw Tyreek Key score 26 against Gonzaga in Texas last October. So that's why I'm kind of cynical about the whole situation. Let me see it. I think they can be a top 30 Ken Palm offensive efficiency team instead of the 50s and 60s like we've seen the last few years. You know the defense is going to be there. I just have to see the offense do it consistently, night in and night out against good competition for long stretches of the season.
Hey, Ben wants you to give your best bet at your starting five. I guess it's kind of a trick question. Do one tomorrow, because I would imagine Zakai's not going to be in the starting lineup, and then do one when Zakai is fully healthy, back ingrained, and at that. Well, even then, heck, he's probably still going to be the sixth man. So do your best at starting five.
Tomorrow, I would go Jordan Gainey at the 1. I'd go Santi 2, Josiah 3, Dalton 4, Jonas Adu 5. When they're back and rolling and everybody's healthy and maybe we're a few weeks into the season, I would go Zakai, Santi, Joe, Dalton, Joe, and Jonas. And obviously Jordan Gainey's going to be really early off the bench. Freddie DeLeon's going to be early off the bench. I haven't seen enough personally from Jonas Adu and Tobe Awaka to think they're going to consistently stay out of foul trouble and consistently, be really productive in bigger roles on this team. They've been more secondary role players in the past. Jones played a little bit of a role last year. Tobe was just a few minutes off the bench. I need to see those guys stay out of foul trouble, produce, play disciplined defense, work well on the offensive end. I don't want them out on the floor together. If I'm Rick Barnes, I want to play smaller, play to my skill and my strength. But I think those are my kind of best case scenario starting fives right now.
This is a Final Four team. Zach wants to know.
I need to see an Elite Eight team before I can see a Final Four team. I saw a second round team send UConn last year and then go to Madison Square Garden and get sent home by a Florida Atlantic team that, you just never know. It just depends on who you're playing, what you're playing like at that time. Florida Atlantic, nobody knew who they were this time last year. Nobody knew who San Diego State was this time last year. UConn didn't win a game in the tournament in 2022, and they go and win the title in 2023. So do they have the talent and the depth to be a Final Four team? Sure, if things go the right way and the bracket falls the right way and you're playing the right way that time of year. But who knows between then and now? It's got 5 months to get there. They certainly could get there, though, for sure.
Grant, Santi going to play? I know he got back on Wednesday. I'm assuming he's going to play and get him going against Tech tomorrow night, right?
I think so. He got back, let's see, what day were we at Pratt? Thursday? I think, no, Wednesday. We were at Wednesday, and they had been off the day before. So he didn't as soon as he got back, basically, he got back into practice the next day. And the thing that Justin Gainey said before practice was he's kind of on autopilot mode right now, which means he's been here so long that he knows what's going on. He doesn't have to have a ton of prep time. He's a veteran guy, and he's always a guy that's always been in shape. So I'd expect him to just jump right back in and be the Santi that everybody expects and play the minutes that we normally see from him.
Grant Ramey, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Of course, follow all of Grant's work over Volquest.com. He puts out about 20 stories a day. Football, basketball, whatever's asked of him, he's over there. And, of course, he'll be covering alongside Rob Lewis, Tennessee basketball season opener tomorrow. Grant, appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, boys. See you.
See you,
Grant. All right, we say goodbye to Grant Ramey. We say hello to Austin Price. Christmas tree is decorated. Man, it's looking good behind you.
We're trying, fellas. We're trying.
Are you a pencil tree only guy? All the trees in your house, little pencil trees like that, AP?
No, that's just the one upstairs. The big one downstairs is.
That's the one of 7 in your Biltmore estate that you got out there in West Knoxville.
It's one of two. The big tree with all the Disney ornaments, Star Wars ornaments, is downstairs.
I got one of those. Not yet. I'll have one of those after Thanksgiving. The girls don't have a Christmas tree in their room?
No, they don't.
Wow. They don't. That's a shock to me there, AP.
Austin, what did you think about Tennessee's homecoming win? Obviously a blowout win. Had a chance to go back and look at some stats, look at some tape and all that. And it just feels like for me, they set out, they did exactly what they were supposed to do to our knowledge right now, stayed healthy and kind of got a win that you wanted before getting back into the grind of things going on the road. CBS kickoff Missouri, which is a huge game.
It's huge for Eric Kane and Austin Price.
I know.
The 3:30 kickoff is a huge deal. I thought it was one of their more complete games. I know they said that they can still be better, and that's good to hear. But when you look at kind of what they're doing offensively right now, it is really, really impressive. They continue to run it at a high clip. Joe is super efficient in the passing game. The receivers have started to come on, even though Dante Thornton's, I guess, impact is still relatively small, 40, 50 yards, average the last couple of games. He just feels and looks more comfortable on the outside. Ramel Keaton started to throw it with a little bit more swagger. Tennessee continues to use the tight ends. And again, like the running game is so spectacular. So, for my liking, I thought it was really, really impressive. And then, of course, you get the 3 defensive scores. Even if you don't get scores, you're setting yourself up with short fields by just getting turnovers. And, I think that's kind of how Tennessee's got to play. Again, I'm not sure they're ever going to be great inside the red zone, but I think that's why, getting big plays, big splash plays, Squirrel White, with a crossing route to the house, Ramel Keaton on a bus, Jalen Wright 82 or 83 yards to the house. Those things are so pivotal, and I think they'll be pivotal this week on the road at Missouri.
I think the big thing for me with when you look at this offense and you really dive into it was the comfort level Joe had throwing the ball over the middle of the football field yesterday. Now, the middle of the field was open. UConn left it open. I don't know that Missouri's going to do that, and certainly not Georgia. But Tennessee has to work inside the hash mark some. They were terrific at it yesterday, Eric, and that's something I think is a good sign for where Joe's at right now. Can he continue to do that? You hope so, but I thought that was a real positive step and just how he played in the middle of the football field yesterday.
I think so too. Again, I go back to the one to Squirrel. That was a second read, and he threw it in stride, and it was a great throw. Again, it was open, but it was a great throw, and I'm not sure that's one that he hits a couple of weeks ago. The one to Ramel Keaton, I mean, he was so wide open, a complete bust, just a simple switch route, and the safety didn't run with him. He was so wide open, and you can tell, I think, that Joe took a little bit off of it just to make sure he didn't overthrow Ramel Keaton down the field. But again, I think some of those
Pittsburgh 2 years ago and overthrew them. I think that's part of the growth of Joe Milton. I'm sure he still probably pulls your hair out with some of the simple throws that he throws like a BB, but anybody that's watching him can tell that he's grown a ton in the last 2 years, Eric. And that throw was one of them. He made a similar throw to Ramel last year in the Orange Bowl, but this one was even more wide open. And really, it was not like Ramel had to sit there and wait on the punt. It still relatively hit him while he was moving, right? I don't know if he wasn't going full bore, but
it was still over the shoulder. It was still in stride, yeah. But
just continue to improve, man. Joe continues to improve. He continues to add stuff to his game. If I'm a Tennessee coach, I'm really excited about the next 3 weeks just to see what he can do.
Well, and I think he's getting help too. I mentioned this in the 10 things. The comeback throw he made to Squirrel, which was on a second or third read, was a really good play out to his right because Squirrel made it a good play because he kept coming back to the ball. And I think the receivers have improved along with Joe, and I think that's a positive sign moving forward for Tennessee.
Hey, Caleb Webb on Nico's throw as well did the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's something that group has gotten better at. I don't think they were, I don't think all of them played particularly great early. Now, part of it was because Joe wasn't helping them out either as well. But I think all of those guys are getting better, which is a positive sign. But it starts with Joe and Joe's accuracy for 3 weeks. The guy's completing 73% of his passes the last 3 weeks. Yeah, I know UConn's one of those, but so was Alabama and so was Kentucky. Guy's throwing the ball really well, and his fundamental and his footwork has gotten a ton better. His legs has helped him. I don't care what he says, the post-game press conference, or whatever that answer was, but, you got to come get me or whatever. I don't know what that meant.
Stop me first.
Yeah. the bottom line is the physicality he's playing within the run game and kind of immersing himself into the run game and getting hit and getting going, as Joey Halsley said earlier in the week, has helped Joe. And I think it's very obvious that it has helped him since he trucked Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M, and knocked him out of the game. Guys played better ever since then. I mean, he really has.
No, he has, and I think somebody got into him in that halftime at Texas A&M. I really do, because he's been just a completely different guy. Let's go through and answer some questions here. As we got about 10 minutes left here on the Rocky Top Rewind. Go ahead and send in your questions. We'll star them and try to answer them. Let's go to Thomas here. Can we talk about Turrentine? Thought he flew around pretty well. Looked like he was playing some star. Is that right? Brent, you might have saw this. I only saw him play safety, but more on Turrentine. I mean, he was getting tons of reps in preseason camp because of the injuries the guys ahead of him. Now, we know those guys like to play their veteran safeties. We get it. But he went from a guy that we talked about a ton in fall camp to a guy that only plays in lopsided defeats, essentially. But I thought he did some things yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he played safety only. He didn't play star. He played safety, and that was the last two positions that they kind of transitioned the starters out of on the field. I think he was fine. I mean, I thought he played physical. I don't think he's ready to roll into the rotation, and we'll see. I think that safety spot for next year is going to be really interesting to see what happens and kind of who are the candidates to be the safeties next year. Wesley Walker could come back, right, AP? I don't know that he would do that. He does, I think, technically have a COVID year.
He does. I just don't think he will. I mean, he and Tyler Barron are brothers, and
yeah, I mean, I don't think he comes back.
But like-minded, I think.
Does Danico Slaughter? Do you like where you are with Ricky Gibson and where you are at your corner spots? That Slaughter moves to safety. I think Jordan Thomas should be somewhere in the secondary next year, but you got to get him somewhere and leave him. You can't cross train him all spring and all fall. He's got to get a home, and he's got to stay at that home. I mean, Tamarian McDonald could come back. Does he transition to safety? Would he stay?
Lolly could come back too.
Yeah, I mean,
he come back. I mean, a lot of that. I mean, I'm with you, Hubs. It's not just secondary. I think it's a lot of places on this team.
Oh yeah.
It looks like next year depends on who all comes back and who all doesn't.
Yeah, but that safety spot's going to be a pretty fascinating competition in the spring, depending on who's here and who's not here, and depending on kind of who develops and who they move around trying to put the puzzle piece together.
I cannot wait for the COVID years to be over with, because, I mean, like, I second-guess everybody right now, because Gabe Giulali, in my mind, now he might have redshirted 1 year, but played 3 years at Vanderbilt, then a year at BYU, and now a year here at Tennessee. So it's like, that's 5 years right there. Maybe he redshirted. I don't know. I can't wait for the COVID years to be over with.
Well, the 1 year is okay. The 1 year is COVID, right? So if you only played in 4 games and you redshirt, like, he's got an extra year if he wants it.
Okay.
I don't know. I think a lot will depend on grade. I think a lot of the guys will depend on their draft grade. I think some of them, I think, will just go because, but some of them, I think, we'll wait to see what kind of grade they get and then go determining after that.
Hey, if you look at the question on the screen right now, this is from J Mac. If Tennessee doesn't land Cam Michael or Seaton, then was this a failure in recruiting during the season? Also, will the wide receiver recruiting be a missed opportunity this year if they don't land Cam Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people need to understand. Cam Michael is a great athlete. Cam Michael is, not really played wide receiver. He's extremely raw. And so, like, anybody that thinks Cam Michael is something like, oh, he's walking in the door and he's playing next year, you're wrong. And I think that, the guy's super talented, but he's super raw. So he's got a lot to learn at the receiver position. He just started to transition there this year at Statesboro. Seaton, I mean, 5-star offensive tackle with everybody in the country after him. So, I mean, I wouldn't call it a failure recruiting in season. What if they flip Kai Bates? What if they flip, Michael Smith, who is Merklinger's teammate, or whoever? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's more than just 2 kids. So, no, I mean, like, again, I think anybody that – I think you will slow your roll on Cam Michael. I like Cam Michael a lot, but, like, if you're expecting him to come in here and, be a guy that helps you next year, I just think you're probably a little bit far-fetched in that notion.
All right, let me have a little fun with you, AP. Who would be more college ready on offense next year, Cam Michael or Boo Carter?
Boo Carter.
I like Blue Carter on offense.
It's not
wanted to
close.
get that out there.
It's not close. It's really not close.
I mean,
just
he
wanted to get that
he
out
plays
there.
offense right now, yeah, and he has for years, and he's a stud. So yeah, Brent Hubbs, man, that you talk about Christmas trees and Santa, wish list and everything. Boo Carter is an offensive player. Get that for Brent Hubbs. I'm just excited to at least see him in the future.
Look,
be
I
a punt
think
returner.
he can come in and make an impact on defense too. I mean, listen, I just think that.
But are they going to play him on defense?
Just play him somewhere.
Their history shows you no.
He's too good of an athlete not to be a factor somewhere early in his career at Tennessee.
Brent, take this one. Do you see any potential staff moves this offseason? A lot of time it's impossible to tell, but is this a year that Tim Banks takes a head coaching job? Don't think Halsey's going anywhere. Ellerby's going anywhere. It might be somebody on the defensive side, but do you see any moves?
Nah, I mean, you never know what job comes open. If somebody has an opportunity to be a coordinator somewhere. I think with where this staff is, the culture they have in place here, I think they like working for Josh Heupel. They're obviously being paid well here. Austin, I just think that Tennessee, because they've gotten the salaries where they are, have put them in a position where the assistants on the staff can be extremely selective in taking another job. Yeah. Nobody's taking a job for a pay raise. Nobody's taking a job just to take a job to be a coordinator, right? Like Brian Jean-Marie, I think, can be a coordinator. I think he's got plenty of coordinator potential. He's not going to jump on the first job possibility out there the same way I don't think Tim Banks is going to jump on the first head coaching opportunity if one presents itself out there. I think a year ago, Alex Golesh wanted to be a head coach so bad he was going to take a job. I don't know that there's anybody on the staff wanting a promotion so bad that they're going to take the first job coming their way.
I agree with that. Like a guy like Jerry Mack, if he got a chance to go to the NFL, that could happen.
Sure.
In college, it would have to be a fairly big head coaching job for him to leave. I don't think he's just going anywhere to be a OC unless it's like, big time. And I'm not sure anybody's go look at J Mack as an OC at the, Power 5, level. Could he get a head coaching job at a mid-level school? Sure. And that might intrigue him. But I think, the most likely scenario where he leaves would be NFL. BJ, same type thing. You just referenced him. Tim Banks, I think, will be selective. Kelsey, Ablin, none of that offensive side really is going to go anywhere, in my opinion. Defensively, Rodney, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. Willie's on the last year of his contract.
That would be one.
We'll see what happens there.
I forgot that one.
But if the defensive line continues to play well enough that the secondary plays well, and I think he might have a chance to be back. And so I think there's a potential a couple of guys that could move, but you could also roll and not have anybody leave.
AP, let's say with you, we talked about this a little bit in the war room. Aaron Carter did not play yesterday. A bit banged up right now. Is this something that's week to week, day to day, towards the end of the season? What's the latest with Tennessee's linebacker Aaron Carter?
I think a lot of it will depend on just his ability to handle the pain. He's got a bit of a shoulder deal, and I'd say that's where where this thing will go. It'll be what can Arian handle and what can he not handle.
Yeah, and listen, in a non-blowout game, Arian's playing 5-7 snaps a game, something to that effect. And he would have played a ton, obviously, on Saturday had he been healthy. But in a game, in a Power 5 game, conference game, he's 5 to 7 snaps plus some special teams is kind of where he is right now. So we'll see how that shoulder progresses this week in terms of rehab stuff, range of motion, pain tolerance, and all that.
AP, anything else in the world of recruiting from this past weekend? I know mainly the focus is 25-26, but you got Georgia game coming up, a home game in 2 weeks. Of course, Vanderbilt at the end of the season. Tennessee trying to finish off the class of 24. Anything going on in recruiting right now we should know about? Not
really. I mean, all eyes on the Georgia weekend. Jordan Seaton will be here for his official visit. Kai Bates will be in town. Amaris Williams will be in town for his official visit. And then we'll see if Cam Michael makes it back up. That's potential. And then we'll see. We'll go from there. But right now, it's kind of where it's at. Just kind of all eyes on the Georgia, the final big recruiting weekend before the month of December.
Hey, AP, is Tennessee still involved with the kid from Florida that's committed to Missouri, the defensive lineman?
Yeah, so Elias Williams, absolutely. Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama.
Could a game like this weekend have any kind of impact on him, do you think? Or is that probably pushing at this point in the game, it's not about wins and losses with the team.
I just don't think it matters. Like, I mean, for most kids, like you're talking about, Tennessee's at worst probably will go 8-4, right? Missouri potentially about right around the same record, depending on how they finish. So, I mean, I just don't think that it's one loss, one win determines whether a kid, goes. I think a lot of it will depend on kind of, does he feel wanted? What's the NIL opportunities? Relationship with the coaches, playing time, path to the field in front of him with in his case, the defensive line group. What's it look like next year? So, right now, I think this game doesn't necessarily mean yes or no for him.
Okay.
And then out the door, guys, over under 2 wins in the last 3 games. A little premature. It's not Friday yet for our picks here, but at the beginning of the week, before you've really started to dig down into the numbers and everything, over under 2 wins to end the season, Austin.
Well, I mean, they've hung 60 on them the last couple of years, so it's hard for me to believe that this offense, which has started to turn the corner,
different Missouri team, but true,
isn't going to but they still give up points. I mean, maybe not 60, but they still give up points, and they give up a lot of yards on the ground, which sets up well for Tennessee, right?
It does.
So it's hard for me to believe that Tennessee won't have a pretty solid shot going in there this weekend. I think playing at 3:30 does help, and not 7:30 at night. It won't be as cold, and again during the daytime. So I think Tennessee's got a pretty good shot this weekend. Again, though, I think a lot of it depends on the pass rush. Does Missouri hold all night and Tennessee can't get home, and the corners and safeties are left out there on an island? If that's the case, then I might change my pick. But right now, I would. I feel like Tennessee's got a pretty solid shot.
Brent Hubbs.
Well, Tennessee's run 2 years ago. They ran from Columbia, Missouri, to Kansas City against Missouri, and last year they ran from Knoxville to the Plateau against Missouri in terms of running the football. They've had great success running against Missouri. They've got to run the football extremely well. And I agree with Austin. I mean, can they get Brady Cook to make a mistake is the answer. I mean, I don't think Georgia's as good as they've been the last few years. I don't think that's where Georgia's at. But Missouri moved the ball effectively. I mean, they were going back down to take the lead in the fourth quarter till the interception to the defensive lineman. I mean, this feels like it's going to be a high-scoring affair, which puts pressure on Tennessee's offense, right? They're playing better, but it feels like Tennessee's going to have to score some points here because I don't know if Tennessee can shut Missouri out. I think while Missouri's better defensively, Cook's that much better offensively when you throw in the receivers and the weapons that he has. Feels like this one's going to take a lot of points to win it, but Tennessee's offense is playing the best they've played all year long right now. So it's hard to say Tennessee doesn't go up there and get a win. I think the pressure's on Missouri, right? A lot of people are going to talk about, well, can Joe go get a signature win? Well, is Missouri going to get a signature win? Right? Yeah. I mean, they didn't beat LSU at home. Okay, they went to Kentucky and won. I don't know that's this is playing one of the big boys, so to speak, and it's a team that's manhandled you for 2 games. So I feel like there's more pressure on Missouri in this game than there is on Tennessee. How do they handle that this week?
Yeah, not moral victories. I'm not trying to say that, but they've had 2 games at Georgia and against. Were they on the road at LSU? Was that a road game for Missouri? Home game. Okay, so against LSU and against Georgia, where I mean, Georgia, you had a chance to win. Against LSU, you put up a ton of points. 2 losses, but 2 games where you felt pretty good about yourself. So you had 2 of those games where it's like, okay, like this is a pretty good football team heading in the right direction. It's can you get that signature win? And that's a great opportunity for Missouri this weekend. So we'll preview it all week long. It's Sunday night, half glass full. I'll say over. You're
taking over 2, so you got them sweeping the month? Because I'm not taking over 2.
Oh yeah, that's how that would work, right?
Yeah,
then I'll say under. Sorry, I'll say under.
I'm taking a push, but I'm not taking over.
Yeah.
I don't think Tennessee's going to sweep the month to go to the house.
If it was 1.5, I could take over, and you could go 2 or 3 essentially. But
yeah, forget it. We're taking the over.
Clean sweep, baby. The complete opposite of last November, right? We'll see what happens. We'll continue.
I'll tell you what. If 9-3 means Orlando or Tampa versus 10-2 in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, which is a deal.
Here we go.
I'll take 9-3.
I tell you what, the Chamber of Commerce is never going to use AP as a spokesman for Atlanta.
and neither is the Peach Bowl. Gary Stoken's never gonna have you represent him for any of his games.
Can't wait for the thread on the board. Then I can't believe AP would forfeit a win like that.
Well, they get mad when I say, get Alabama off the schedule. All the old timers, it's blasphemy. But then they're also the same old timers that say, I mean, it's crooked refs down there in Tuscaloosa. I mean, we never have a fair shot. Okay, then get them off the schedule.
If you don't get them off the schedule, bring in a Big 12 crew.
He's Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Grant Ramey here for a segment. I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us here today on the Spivey King and Spivey LLP Rocky Top Rewind. If you have a need, give them a call today for a free consultation, 423-245-4185. Again, our friends Spivey King and Spivey LLP at SpiveyKingSpiveyLLP.com. Appreciate you guys for being here with us. We'll be back Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, all right here on the Rocky Top Rewind.